Welcome back. Here's what we're doing. We're getting these images ready to go on the internet, and I've already placed the rest of my images on top of their perspective little green boxes here, and I've made clipping masks so that they only show up where there's opacity in the layer below. So now I'd like to do some color correction to these things. I want this to be darker because I'm going to have some text over it. Let me see if I can turn my text on. There we go. So I need this to be darker so that this text shows up better. Anyway, I'm going to hide my guides by pressing Command and colon, and I'm going to select that layer right there, and then I'm going to go down to the very bottom of this layer palette where this half white, half black ball is down here. I'm going to click on that, and you'll be able to see a list, but you can't in the movie. And I'm going to go to curves. I'm going to choose curves, and then I should get this my curves dialog box to pop up here. And this little mountain in the background is called the histogram. It kind of shows me how much shadow, how much highlight I have in my image. A little on the shadowy side right now, which is good because I do want this to be darker. But as you can see, if I drag the shadow into this line, this direction, it lightens up the shadow area and washes it out. I mean, you might like this. Here's one more thing. Look how it's correcting everything on the page, even the background. So the same way I made this clipping mask here, I can do the same thing for the color correction, which is represented by this layer here. So I'm going to right click or control click, and I'm going to say create clipping mask. And now, as you can see, it is only color correcting the image that's right below it in the clipping mask line. Okay, so I'm going to drag this back down here. If I drag it this way, it fills the shadow up. If I drag the highlight this way, it fills the highlight with gray. If I go this direction, it opens the highlight to the point where I can blow it out. So, I mean, any of these could be styles that you might want to choose for your images. But in this case, I really just want to make the image, excuse me, darker. So I'm going to grab the middle right here, and I'm going to push up on that, pull down on it until it gets a little darker. Okay, something like that. And then we'll do some other stuff to make that even better. Also, what I can do at this point is I can, in my dialog box here, I have these little eyedroppers. There's one that's black, one that's gray, and one that's white. Now if I choose the gray one and I click on something in my image that I know is neutral or supposed to be neutral, it'll try to fix it. Adjust the color so that it's more color balanced. So you can see how it changed this to be more, it looks more red overall, but it can only make that visually neutral. So you might try that if you know something in your picture is neutral, a white wall behind the subject or whatever. And so you can see how it tries to adjust that stuff. Okay, I'm going to close that dialog box. The next thing I'm going to do for this image right here is, remember, this is a smart image. So I can do blurs and stuff to it and it won't be a destructive maneuver. But I want to change, I want to duplicate this and then change the blending mode. So I need to make a second one. I'm going to drag this down to that new page icon or new layer icon, and now I have two. While that one is selected, I'm going to go up under filter and I'm going to go down to blur, and I'm going to choose Gaussian blur, and I'm going to set Gaussian blur to about that blurriness right there. Okay, in this case it's 6.4. And then I'm going to change the now there's another layer right underneath it. I'm going to change the way this layer affects the layer that's below it. And I'm going to do that by coming up here to this little thing that says normal. It's my blending modes. And I'm going to change it to soft light. Okay? And this is how it affects the image. Okay? Anyway, that's what I want for this image. Next I'm going to go down and color correct. I may not even color correct at this point. This looks a little blue to me. So let's go get the Spruce Goose. and we'll use that neutral thing. So I'm on the Spruce Goose layer itself. I'm coming down to that golf ball, half white, half black, and I'm choosing curves again. And then I'm going to use that eyedropper, the gray one, and I'm going to click on the Spruce Goose somewhere. That seems a little much for me. Yeah, that's looking a little better. Looks a little red, I'm thinking. Okay, I'm happier with that. Anyway, then I'll close that property box. If it's too much, I can always change the opacity. If I think that's gone too far, I'm turning the opacity down here to about 73%. Next thing I want to do is I want to get on the Spruce Goose layer again, and then I'm going to, oh, you know what I should have done? I should have made these smart objects before I reduced them so much. Didn't follow my own rule. Bad me. Anyway, so let's pretend that these are smart objects. Now if I do any color corrections or retouching and want to make them bigger again, I have lost all that high resolution data. So bad me. I guess I should listen to my own videos. Okay, I'm going to go up here. Here's the Spruce Goose layer, and I'm going to go under Filter this time, and I'm going to go to Sharpen and Unsharp Mask. And under here, I'm going to turn the amount way up so I can see what's really happening. And then I'm going to mess with the pixels. Unsharp masking is a way to make a picture that's not so sharp look sharper. Okay, you can kind of see what it's doing there. And usually you use a small radius. But there's a kind of a cool effect that creates more shape overall in the picture if you turn that radius way up. And you're going to try a bunch of different stuff, but you can see how it creates a kind of an interesting effect. I'm going to turn the amount down because I think that's too much. So about here and there, and I'll say okay to that. And I just think it makes a more interesting image. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing here, and that would be Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Masking, and that's making this image really dark. So I'm either going to change the amount. There we go. So here's what this one looks like before and after. I'm liking that, so I'll say okay. Much more dynamic. Very exciting. Okay, here we go. And the last one, back up to Filter and Sharpen and Unsharp Masking. And I'll mess around with the radius here again until I get what I'm looking for. Okay, and say okay to that. Now we'll go back out to this. So that's what it looks like at 100% right there. Okay, those are the images that I want to export for my website. I'm not going to export this whole thing as one big image, but as 4 images, okay? Let me back off here and turn on some of the other layers. Like I said, this is kind of how I lay out my design so that I can see where everything is going. Now all of this text, the logo, and all of the navigation, I'm going to add those things when I get into Dreamweaver. But to show the client or for my own benefit to see how this lays out, I can see it, I can create it and move it around a lot faster in here in Photoshop than I can in Dreamweaver. So I lay everything out here and I get the pictures the way I want them. If I started color correcting these things on a white background, they'd have a way different look than they do on this background. They would look much darker, and I'd have trouble deciding what how to adjust the color. So put them on the background color that they're going to be on before you start doing the color corrections. So anyway, here we go. Remember, I'm going to add all this text then back in Dreamweaver. So I can come in here in Photoshop and measure all these distances so I know how to set up my margins and padding and that kind of stuff. And by that, I mean I can come up here with just the marquee tool again and go to Info panel, and right here it tells me that the width of that particular selection is 95 pixels or 59 pixels. So I can measure all of this stuff in here and make myself a little drawing just to help me when I start building or constructing my web page. Anyway, so let's see how to get these things out of here. Deselect, Command D. I'm going to go to this layer right here. This is the layer that's right underneath this one, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection by holding down the Command key and rolling over the icon for that little green box. And see how it makes a selection here? Okay, this is just one way to do this. It's not the only way. It's just the way that I like to work. I'm going to come up here to Image. No, it's Edit. Copy Merge. Copy Merge or Shift Command C. And what that did is I put all of this and all of its corrections and all of its layers and the text onto the clipboard. So when I say File New, the clipboard remembers to tell the new file what size is in there, and all I have to do is say OK and then paste. And there it is. Now I'm going to go right to File, Save for Web, which is right here, Save for Web, and I get this dialog box. Sometimes it comes up with just the original, just the optimized, or 2-up, and I want to look at it in a 2-up fashion. I cannot make it any smaller, so this says Save down here. That's all you're missing. This is the before, the original, and the size, 780K, and this is the after, and wherever you left it last time is where it'll be this time. So for JPEG, and we want JPEG as the style or the size here, we can start messing with the quality, okay? So leave it unoptimized, but start changing the quality smaller and smaller. I'm going to put it on 0, and you can see how this really starts to fall apart and chunks it up. So this is a lossy compression format, which means it throws away data to make the image smaller. But I can keep messing with this, and the idea is I want to start with it on the lowest quality and work my way up higher until I have an acceptable representation of that image. Okay, and that for me is happening about 45 on the quality level right here. So you can see what happens here is I had a 780K picture to begin with, and my saved image is going to be 40K. So it really reduced it a lot. Next thing I want to do is hit save, and that's down here. And in this case, I want to save. I'm going to go out to my desktop, and I am going to, remember we created our sites folder on the desktop. And in the Sites folder, I'm going to make a new folder because this is my new website, and it's called, let's call it Green Evergreen. That's the name of the place. And I'll say Create. And inside the Evergreen folder now, I want to create another folder, and that one's going to be called Images. Okay, and that's where I want to save this image. So Save. And now I can dismiss this, don't save, and go back and do the same thing for the next image over here. Okay, I'm going to come up under Image, Edit, and go to Copy Merged. And then I'm going to say New, and it already knows what size it's supposed to be, so I'll say OK. Next I will say Paste. After Paste comes File, Save for Web, and the same thing. I want to compare these two images. And see that the compressed image is looking almost as good as the original image. Okay, and I'm going to do that by making sure this is on JPEG. JPEG is great for photographs. We'll talk about the other formats. And I'm going to turn the quality all the way down, and then take a look at these two images and slide the quality slider up slowly until it doesn't have so much of that JPEG artifact around it, okay? And then I'm going to say Save and put it in the same folder. Oh, I should have named it. We'll call this Pic2. No spaces, no special characters. Remember, these are going to go on the web. The first one I'm going to go in there and retitle Top so I know where it fits in my website. And that's how you do it. I would continue to do these things, and then all my images for that particular website are going to end up in my image folder. All right? All right. See you.